Hello and welcome to another edition of 33 Conversations. I'm your host, Michael Abney, and I'm also the founder of 33 Strangers. But today, hosting a pod about mission-driven founders, what we go through, what we experiences, the way we got to contort ourselves sometimes to get through to the next day, all of those things and more. I love talking about the human aspects of building something meaningful in the world, because the world needs more of it. And any way we can talk about reducing those barriers to that, I'm all for it. And I'm blessed today to have Sydnee Shorten is my guest today. Sydnee, you're in Colorado, and your mission driven is around, your business is around providing ADA programs and solutions. And I love your spark, and we talked about it a little bit on our pre-call, but I would love for you to introduce yourself and share a little bit about yourself and what led you to this moment that you're in now, and then we'll just take it from there. But thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time as well. So I'm Sydnee Shorten. I'm the founder and CEO of ADA Program Solutions. And my journey into this work is deeply personal. I come to this work not just as a consultant, but someone who has lived the reality of struggling in silence. After back-to-back traumas in my personal life, I was left with PTSD. And then early in my HR career, I was unaware that I had rights and options under the ADA, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act. I struggled with performing my essential functions of my roles at work, but I was really too scared to say anything about it. I found alternative solutions to kind of mask the trauma that I had experienced, and that overflowed into my professional life. So for years and throughout my career in human resources, as well as in insurance, I carried the weight of even toxic workplaces, which really forced myself to perform my essential functions, my roles, everything behind what I consider to be a mask or a very strong persona. As a single parent and a sole provider, I had very little support, yet strangers eventually became my family, and their resilience became my daily practice. So over time, I gained a deeper understanding of ADA. I was able to find my voice, not only for myself, Michael, but also for others who feared retaliation in the workplace. So that knowledge became really the turning point for me. I realized that compliance could be more than just a policy. It could be a pathway to dignity and justice, and I'm all about fairness in the workplace. So the defining moment came during an executive reduction in force a couple of years back. Within the same hour, I received a call from the home hospice back home where my dad was at, and urging me to travel to come take care of him because his health had declined significantly. Within an hour of receiving that phone call, I received a meeting invite with my manager and with HR to let me know of the reduction in force and that I would be losing my position with the company. So, as you can imagine, the double shock of loss. It was very devastating for me at that time. My father ended up passing away in my care, and I was left to decide, okay, what do I do next, right? Returning to corporate America really felt in that moment impossible because I knew of all the toxic environments, and I was just really numb at that point. So it was then that a trusted friend of mine encouraged me to step out on my own. That encouragement, combined with my lived experiences, really became the catalyst for launching ADA Program Solutions. So what began as a survival transformed into my purpose. So building a company that helps organizations move beyond just the compliance, but really truly moving into the space of inclusion, equity, and belonging. So that kind of highlights my journey to why I founded ADA Program Solutions.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I appreciate it. I felt it. I felt your sharing. Sorry for your loss for your dad. I totally know what that's like. It's like the rug being pulled out from underneath you and then having the other rug financially being pulled up from underneath you. And that was the spark that caused everything else to pop.
Yes.
So also too, like you sharing where you were coming from, I couldn't help but notice that that still like deeply resonates with you as you're going through. It's like you're almost like living it again when you're sharing it with us, right? How is living with that? How is showing up? Because, you're doing this for you, and the world's on fire too. Let's throw that in there as well. Yes, absolutely, right? Everybody's acting
Absolutely.
yeah. So I want to acknowledge you for the extraordinary fucking courage that it takes to do what you did and go through that and still be here to talk about it. I don't take it lightly. And I just want you to know you're not in this alone. And I know that's how that lives for you, doesn't it? It lives for you, like you carry it with you, right?
Yes, absolutely. So for me, even in the space, given some of my past traumatic events I've lived through, thank God, I realized one time as I was giving a speech on domestic violence to an audience to raise funding for domestic violence, I realized in that moment afterwards, a lady came up to me and her voice was so raspy. And she just said, "Sydnee, you just spoke what I've been living, and because you left the situation, you gave me hope that I can leave too." So that resonated with me. A lot of times when you think about disabilities, 1 in every 4 people have a disability. And with that being said, it does impact those individuals in the workplace. A lot of times, a lot of the disabilities are not seen. We call those the silent disabilities. So a lot of times people think of...
Talk about that more. Like tell people what this, like bring light to it.
Absolutely. So a lot of times people think of disabilities and they think of the physical, somebody in a wheelchair or something like that, but they don't realize that the silent disabilities really pertain to the mental health and the impairments that you can have on that, whether that's loss of, you're having difficulty concentrating at work, maybe your memory is slipping, it's hard to function, it's hard to stay focused, you have anxiety, and sometimes that anxiety is caused by the work environment because it triggers something else that person experienced. And so anytime those mental health conditions play a part, that's what we consider the silent disabilities, because looking at me, somebody wouldn't say, "Oh, she looks like somebody who has PTSD," or "Oh, she looks like somebody who has XYZ," right? So that's why we call it the silent disabilities, because you really can't see them just by observation alone.
And if you go out a little bit, there's also the undercurrent of our own unchecked biases about even the word disability, what that means. I remember we grew up in a really small town, but there was it's still there today, but it was a nonprofit or something. I don't even remember the name of it, but it helped. It was like the biggest building in the little small town was all helping, people with disabilities. And it's almost like a part of us doesn't, I'm just going to be open. Let's just be open about this. Like blow the lid off of it. How we have that from our survival's perspective, that's an other, because what it does is it mirrors our own fear of our own inadequacies. Is like really what it is, if you really want to break it down. And but we don't talk about it. So it's something that's uncommunicated. So I love that we're talking about this, because we're going to help unrelease some stigma especially in the world of business, we don't talk about that at all.
Absolutely.
But yet, it's mandated as a part of our system. Thank God, because if it weren't, we wouldn't be doing it. And this is the way to make sure that we're doing the best job that we can to take care of all of us, even in a world that doesn't necessarily agree with all of the aspects of it.
Absolutely. And I found working not only in this industry, but, I've had the pleasure of working on the employer side, so in HR directly. I've had the opportunity of working with at a third party administrator that administers the leave of absence and the disability claims for employers. And then also on the broker consultant side, which kind of where I'm at now, but with all three of those prongs, I found that there's gaps in the ADA process and how employers are being helped. A lot of times brokers and consultants, they have knowledge of ADA, so very basic knowledge, but there's a lot of nuances. So with that, I decided to focus, bring my passion, my experience, and focus on that niche of ADA and how it impacts employers. A lot of times small mom and pop shops, they don't realize that if you have 15 employees, you're subject to ADA under Title I, right? So with that comes the compliance piece, and a lot of times these smaller organizations don't realize that there's a risk there until they get an EEOC complaint or a lawsuit has been filed against them because they didn't have a process in place. Their HR teams, their managers didn't realize what the interactive process looks like. What is that dialogue? How can we help the employee? What does it mean to have good faith efforts? What does it mean to even qualify under the ADA, right? A lot of times a person could have a disability but not necessarily qualify for an accommodation, and I could expand on that just a little bit. So for example,
I think it's great to shed light on it, because even as you're talking about it, because I've owned physical businesses before, and I know it was a pain in the butt, not because I didn't want to do it, just because of the extraordinary amount of cost, and also the municipality, about the pickiness of them. I've also been in real estate, a real estate broker for 15 years. My God, it becomes something to survive, and you forget what it's actually there to do. And I think that is, now I'm seeing it, is the disconnect. We're not attached to what the function of it is, because we, as a business owner, I had that as a barrier to what I wanted to do. And does this make sense when I'm saying this? I'm trying to be open
absolutely.
About the concept of it, because I've never thought about what you're communicating, which I find fascinating. I love opening in doors where I haven't thought of something before. It makes me better. And what you're talking about is something that I think none of us really think about that much, because the ADA handled it. We don't have to think about it. Somebody else has done all of it. We just got to survive all the little steps that's put in place. But none of us are thinking about the actual human beings on the other end of it. And that's the missing. So how do you incorporate this, because you are emoting it, how do you pass this to the people that you work with? Is it a part of it?
Absolutely. So for me, one thing that resonates is people don't care what you know until they know that you care, right? So being somebody who has PTSD on the surface level, you wouldn't know that unless I shared my experience with you, right? So from an accommodation perspective, just because I have PTSD and it qualifies under the ADA doesn't mean I qualify for an accommodation, because that PTSD has to be triggered and it has to impact me doing my work. If it never impacts me doing my work, I don't get an accommodation just because I have it. And I think that's a misconception that a lot of people have. They're like, oh, well, I have a disability, so I get an accommodation. Not necessarily, right? So there's a lot that goes into it. When I partner with employers, a lot of times they will reach out because their HR team, they understand the process, they have something in place, but it may or may not be compliant. They reach out because they have an employee, they're looking at by this time, potential termination or separation from the company, but they know that they have to do something, right? So they reach out and I help them with their case review. Sometimes I'll even be assigned as the workplace accommodation specialist for that employee. So I do the beginning to end interactive process with them. The company ultimately is the decision maker and has that responsibility on what they can and cannot implement for the accommodation, but I help walk them through that process, have that discussion, show that empathy, really listen. You've got to be able to actively listen, but then also you've got to take into consideration every work environment is going to be different. You may have one company, but if you're at different locations, the work environment in that location may be a little bit different than another location. So as you think about how can we help accommodate this individual so that they can get their job done, those are the type of things that you've got to be able to not only understand the condition or the impairment, but also understand the work environment that they're subject to as well.
So when you're doing that, you're working with your clients. So who are your actual clients? Like companies or businesses integrating ADA into making sure they're compliant, or like do you help them with like the build out, or like what's the scope?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's several different things that we can do to help. Our target market is small to mid-size employers. So that's a company that has 15 employees up to about 500 employees. That's really the sweet spot for us because those companies don't typically have the additional resources to bring in for that specialty for the ADA. So yes, we can take a look to see what program they have in place, if they have anything at all, and if they don't, we can come in and we can build out that program strategically with them beginning to end. That's all the way down to the communication letters, that's doing the training with the HR, with the supervisor so that they understand what the process is, they understand what they need to be doing to help their employees as well. So
yeah, and you could save them so much money.
Absolutely.
The reason I know is because one of the things that you just triggered a memory for me, thinking of PTSD. Like when you go and you have a budget for build out and then you get it all done and you realize that your toilet's like an inch and a half from being whatever, and it's got to be moved, and it like that bathroom goes from $5,000 to $20,000 like that. That's the type of thing that you would have been able to go, okay, you're going to need to do this prior to putting your floors down and everything. So like, is it something like that? Or
yeah, so that also falls under the ADA, but not the Title I, which is the workplace piece helping the employees.
As a whole.
Right, that falls under a different title, making sure that your facilities has the appropriate accommodations, and yes, installing the toilets, making sure you have enough space for.
See, that's my awareness. So you're giving me even a greater awareness. So it's like the entire ecosystem of the business in an office.
Yes. Okay. So I specialize in making sure that the employees are taken care of, making sure that they have a voice, that the employers are treating them the way that they're supposed to, not only by law, but ADA, it's a civil right. So and a lot of times people don't have any rights because they don't know what they are, right? And so it becomes education. It becomes being able to bring that awareness. So not only do I help employers, because a lot of times the small to mid-sized employers, they may have their HR or their ADA programs in-house. So with that, I could help them come alongside, more like an extension to their HR team. The others I help are brokers and consultants. When a company is large enough to where they want their group insurance, their life, disability, absence management, administration to be outsourced, a lot of times ADA kind of tags along with that because leave as an accommodation is one that interplays with the FMLA, so the Family Medical Leave Act, and some of the other state paid leave laws. ADA kind of just hangs out with that absence management. Insurance carriers who do the administrative services. I partner with clients who have the broker, so I partner with the broker in case they need additional expertise on a certain case or a certain, whatever's going on, as well as the insurance carrier. So I can go in, I could audit the carrier, make sure that their process for their ADA program administratively is set up correctly, that even taking a look at their case files, making sure that the situations were handled appropriately. So I do audits for them as well.
So thank you so much for giving me this overview of what you actually provide for folks. But what I want to know now is like that moment from that you talked about at the beginning, that those two simultaneous events with your dad and your job. Like, how did you manage all of that and start a business, found this business for yourself in this field? We talked in our pre-call, like the pivots that you went through. I would love to know a little bit about what those experiences was like for you as you were building this out.
Absolutely. So I think my survival mode kicked in. I really had to disassociate some of those immediate emotions and put them to the side because I needed to make sure that I built this and I built it correctly, right? So a lot of sweat equity hours goes into it. I had to build everything from scratch. I learned a lot of stuff too, because you have to wear multiple hats. And so, I was the IT person. I had to build out, the CRM system, understand the workflow. In order for it to be programmed, I had to know what steps it needed to take, right? So thinking about big picture, how the organization, when it gets to the level that I see that it can get to, we're going to need a lot of operations. So what does that look like? So I've already built out the org chart, the different roles and positions that we're eventually going to need to fulfill. And so, because if the demand is there, it can't just be me. I'm limited on my time. And so taking a look at just everything beginning to end, building it out, really keeping in mind, okay, I've got to look at it from the employer's angle. I've also got to look at it from the broker consultant angle, like where's the gap there? And then also look at it from the carrier angle. And with that, it's just constantly wearing multiple hats, looking at things from different perspectives, being self-aware, being self-aware of when I reach that limit of mental exhaustion. There's a lot of nights that I didn't sleep. I think with the excitement, but also the, oh my goodness, I've got to get this done, right? I don't have a fear of failure. I think it was more of a fear of success, right? So just getting out of my own way mentally sometimes, I've had to do that as well.
What was your biggest roadblock there? Like, what was your biggest roadblock that you faced when you're going through that?
The biggest roadblock is really myself, just my own mental state of mind, making sure that I renew my mind on a daily basis. I keep things positive, that I don't look at what I haven't done. I look at what I have done, how far I have come with getting this business to where it is.
How do you do that? Like, how do you remind yourself?
Me personally, I pray. It's, waking up, making sure, I pray in the morning, throughout the day, giving gratitude, finding things to be grateful for, connecting with people, connecting with relationships, close ones and also new ones, developing those relationships and really just trying to find that connection when it comes to, I'm a cheerleader for anybody who's an entrepreneur because it's a lot of hard work. What we do is simple, but it's not easy. And a lot of times people aren't they give up too soon, right? And so for me, I think it's don't ever give up. Just keep going. You're going to reach your goal. You know, sometimes the journey comes a lot quicker. Sometimes you have to, you know, go along a few curves here and there. But
Absolutely.
Overall, yeah.
Looking back at those spaces right now, if you could do some magic, what would you go back and give that version of Sydnee that she didn't have then? That you know she would have needed, that you know she needed then? What would you give her?
Ooh, that's a good one. Probably a hug.
What's a
Just
hug
keep
mean
it,
to you?
yeah, just keep it simple. It means that connection, so that you're not alone.
Right. You're not alone. Isn't it crazy how alone, like the aloneness epidemic that people are talking about, and I've seen this a lot in my coaching. People have the sense of it. I know exactly what that feels like. But we're in a world with 8 billion people, and everything's alive, and yet somehow part of our human experience is experiencing that lack of connection that shows up like a lonely, and all the other voices that go along with that radio station. But somehow you find your faith for you, your connection, that brings that connection, and then you immediately went to connecting with others. Like, where are you at today with everything that's happening in your world?
Absolutely. So with that, I would like to also add, I love my two best friends, which are peace and quiet. So I love being alone a lot of times. So for me, I have to make an intentional effort to reach out to the world, to include people into my life, because I can quickly default to my comfort zone, you know, and just make sure that I have that peace and quiet. But as far as where I'm at now, it's, you know, we have several clients, but I want to make a bigger impact. So just making others aware of what we're doing, our mission, and how we could help them with their internal goals and their practices for their businesses. I think that's where I'm at right now, is bringing that awareness to them and making sure that we can get them taken care of. Because I think the impact of what we do is so significant. Lives are changed when you have an inclusive work environment. So,
well, you're in essence giving the thing that you want in your life. You know, like, that's your version of a hug for them.
yes. Ooh, I like that.
Well, it is weird because it's like, I've never thought about the other side of it. Like, you provided a mirror over to the other side of whatever that zeitgeist is around not being abled. But with that said, all of the chaos sometimes actually helps us gain clarity. So what are you clear on right now?
I'm clear on my mission. I'm clear on to keep pushing forward and to make a difference. I'm clear that I have a voice and it will not be silenced. I'm clear on the relationships and strategic partnerships that I have with other companies and their missions that align with what it is that we're doing. And I'm clear that we're going to make a difference in this world.
Clear you are too. I'm clear you already have. I'm clear it's going to increase as well. Yeah. But let's say somebody's listening to this and they're in that pivot where they've had multiple things happening in their life and it's their pivot point. What would you share with them in that moment? Because you made a choice. Somehow you made a choice, because you could have had that same thing happen and made another path, and we wouldn't be on this call today. You could have chosen another route. You could have shrank. You could have not moved forward with your dreams. You could have done a myriad of different things, but you did the thing that you were called to do and you felt called to do, and here we are. But somebody back in that pivot point, what would you give them if they're standing there now? What would you offer them from your wisdom?
Bet on yourself. You can do whatever you set your mind to do, and take a bet on yourself. You know, a lot of times I think the system that we're raised in, the institutionalized system, it prepares us to go work for somebody else to make their dreams happen. So if you're at that fork in the road, so to speak, and you have a passion and a purpose, bet on yourself. Bet on yourself. Go make your dreams happen.
Yeah. Oh, I have chills. Well, I don't know how these times go by so quickly, but I really appreciate you showing up today, sharing your deeply personal story about what you're doing and why you're doing it, and those crazy pivot points that you went through, and sharing your wisdom with our listeners. It's why I do this. There's such power in having conversations and showing
Absolutely.
people that we're just human and we're doing our damn best when the world's on fire. But for me, it's the it's the connectiveness too that's missing, and I'm committed to being a solution for that. And I really enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you so much for having it with me. Is there anything you would like to leave our audience with?
I just want to say thank you so much for this time and opportunity that you've provided me to be able to share with you and with everybody else on my experience and what the mission is. And I just want to say I love what you're doing. I've listened to your prior episodes and podcasts and really resonated with them. So being here today just really solidified that, I'm connecting with the right type of individuals, and we're both making an impact in each other's lives. So thank you.
You are. And I love seeing your smile on your face. Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
really do. Thank you for your light. I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for listening in. Go have your own powerful conversation with somebody that you don't know today, and make a connection and just feel what that feels like. I dare you. But I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Double dare, absolutely. So we love having these conversations. Thanks for listening to our conversation today, and we're going to see you on the next one. Bye, guys. Thank you so much.